I started with strategy and decision making based on my first book, How Life Imitates Chess, non-chess book. Though of course it had many chess elements from my own professional career, and I developed several themes, based on the book, and it included seminars, doing special practical tests and helping people just to see the process of decision making from a very different angle. Then I included other elements as risk and innovation and my views about the development of technologies, and of course there were always political elements, not necessarily only Russian politics, but again generally geopolitical picture if people wanted it, of course. So some of the speeches they had stories on chess and education, because as Kasparov Chess Foundation I've been doing and still doing a lot of work in promoting chess in the classroom. And so with this subject, I was always comfortable, composing a speech that could be tailored for the specific demand of a customer. You can win the world title only once, just you become a world champion. Then, if you want to stay on the top, you have to defend it. So naturally, defending is more complicated, because you just you always have to find a motivation. That's the key factor, and many great players, chess or elsewhere, they were simply losing motivation, because it's very easy to get complacent and to stop working hard as you did before. So the reason for my success was that I never lost my motivation, since I thought that it was all about making the difference. So I was always trying to challenge my own excellence, and it didn't. This is a never-ending quest. Again, thanks to my mother. So she helped me to get good education, and it's not just simply reading books, but also the reading poetry, just writing and making presentations. So I was quite good in addressing my schoolmates. So it's a huge distance between just addressing schoolmates and making professional presentations. But I was never shy of communicating my views and ideas to the public. I became quite engaged in political activities in the Soviet Union, late 80s, with the rise of the pro-democracy movement, and I was always willing to share my ideas and even my emotions. Since I left professional chess, I found it fairly easy to sort of shift into the world of speaking engagements and motivational presentations, because for me it was every speech is some kind of a challenge, since I always want to come up with some new ideas. So I can proudly say I never delivered a canned speech. So I always look for a new angle. It depends on the subject. So I believe there are a few key ideas that I can package better than any other speaker, and because it's very much based on my own experience. I'm not an observer who was sitting in the comfort of his or her own study, collecting this information and then presenting it, in a nice, very eloquent way. So it's a personal experience. It's always personal story, and I think it's one of the key messages on decision making that I communicate to the audience is that be aware of universal tips. Be aware of universal advice. That if you do this, you get better. Any advice should be very individual, because we're different, And if we do medical tests, we if we want to be cured from our illness, we should actually go through these tests to understand, what works for us and what may be even counterproductive. Decision making is as unique as fingerprints or DNA, and we're different. Some of us are more aggressive, some of us are more defensive, and there's nothing wrong about one way or another. It's all about understanding who you are, and it's what is your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and then creating the framework for decision making, which will make you most comfortable in realizing your hidden potential. Simply following the advice for the whole audience, without contemplating how it may affect your own nature, it's extremely counterproductive. I think we have been facing sort of the growing rejection of risk as a concept in the last few decades because of the comfortable life we used to live in. And gradually it has spread around and affected our lives, whether it's in business, in politics, or even in education. I think it's now the concept of sacrifice as a very important part of progress has been lost. And people are looking for market economy, for liberal democracy as tools to provide them with new means of a comfortable life, not recognizing that those tools are just are offering opportunities, not guarantees. So I think that's the risk-averse society. It's standing on the way of future progress, and that's why in my speeches I use more and more the stories about risk-taking and about recovering the very nature of capitalism that helped to create massive wealth around the planet. I always want to make sure that my speech is a story. It's not just a bunch of segments, anecdotes. So it's something that it's cohesive. It's something that from the beginning to the end sort of creates a theme that will very much reflect the title of the speech. I'm quite serious in picking up the title because I want to make sure that people realize that it's the. I mean, they got what they expected. So it's the, though of course there are many unexpected turns, because I always want to surprise them with a story that is related to something they know. For instance, I always look for when I look at a day in history, for instance, or for something that is connected to the venue where I'm delivering the speech. I always want to find a story that that has an interesting component, interesting turn, a sort of a twist. But it comes from a name they know. I mean, it's a big name, whoever it is, William Boeing, Coco Chanel. So it's just Edison, Thomas Edison. But it's something that they may not be aware. So there's something that is connected to these famous individuals, but it could help us actually to see it from a different angle. So for me, it's very important because they don't have to be challenged with a source. So but I create few stories and try to make sure that they can see the connection, and it can help them to think about their own performance and to have something to chew on after a day or even a few days after they heard the speech. My art of persuasion is based on a very simple fact. I tell my own story. people know whether you are trying to convey a message that is a soundbite or your true beliefs. I will lose my power of convincing people if I start telling them, stories from other people, or presenting something where, they could immediately sense that it's not based on my own beliefs. As long as I'm staying on my own territory, and it's quite a vast territory, covering a few areas, I feel comfortable, and my psychological comfort, one or another, is always being communicated to the public.